so Roald Dahl. So there have been attempts to cancel him in some cases successfully, but I guess not quite because he was eventually his works were I won't say reinstated, but the decision to censor him was reversed eventually. So what should we do in such cases, and why is there a need to revisit past works and cancel them? Is this incessant need to cancel others, is this part of the new woke cancel culture? So joining us today, welcome everyone to episode 58 of Teh Tarik with Walid. So joining us today will be a local author. As some of you may know, I was asking on my IG about what people felt about this entire episode, and some people, a minority, felt that Roald Dahl should indeed, his works should be edited. Our guest today, she doesn't believe that, but she believes Roald Dahl's works are problematic, and she will explain. I don't want to put words in her mouth.
Hi everyone, my name is Far'ain Jafaar. I'm an author. I'm an author to 5 books and counting. Yeah, and I'm also an advocate in various areas of advocacy.
Okay. So what types of books have you written? You've written 5 books. So
They
what
are all
types are those?
children's books. They range from talking about the hijab, which is what I'm wearing right now. Also talking about families, breastfeeding. There's one also about financial literacy, and my most current book, Baby, is about accessibility. So it's about a blind person who has a favorite color. Yes.
Interesting. Okay, interesting. Thank you, Far'ain. So let's get to it. So my first question to you is, what's your beef with Roald Dahl?
Getting straight to it right away. You're not even giving me a warm-up session.
Yes, yeah. So what's your problem?
Okay, so well, my problem, inverted commas, would be that, these classics, not just Roald Dahl, other classics that, that sit along the same context as Roald Dahl, like Enid Blyton, Dr. Seuss, C.S. Lewis and all. They represent a worldview and perspective of powerful white people. Yeah, and they are part of a system that maintain the structure to keep them in power. So that's my main beef. If you want to ask about the main beef of it. So there's, of course, the text itself, there's xenophobia, there's bigotry in the various content of the authors. So that's the main beef in a very quick summary.
Right. Okay. So let's unpack them. So there are a couple of comments. One by Hamza, which I will address later because I intended to address that as well. By Sarabjit, he said he's his first time joining a live session, and so glad it's a conversation with you. Thank you, Sarabjit. Right. So okay, so if I am allowed to paraphrase you, so it's not only that you want to cancel Roald Dahl, you want to cancel C.S. Lewis, Enid Blyton.
Correct.
Okay. So it's okay. Sorry. So not only should they be viewed through a lens which finds them problematic, so we should do what exactly with them, with these works? Not read them?
No, I don't think that it
edit
should be
them?
edited. That's my perspective. I don't see a need on why this literature that were deemed as classics by the people of the white institution should be edited. Personally, I felt that this whole talk on getting them edited is a publicity stunt. just to keep them relevant. Because it's right. It's the change is coming. We are this generation of parents are the generation of disruptors. We are the ones who are with paying power. We vote with our money, and we are voting for more representation, more better, diverse representation, more affirming representation of the diverse community in the global world. So I found that all this talk in the media about rewriting the Roald Dahl books is just a PR stunt to keep it relevant, and it's also part of the system, the organization's a system to maintain power of the literature. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know what to make of this information, what you would make of this information, but my wife lets my son read Roald Dahl. In fact, she's just bought, I don't know whether it's all, but a lot of his books for my son. And so I guess even within this generation of disruptors, quote unquote, there is a diverse range, right, of parents. And so what exactly is the problem with them? It cannot be that because they're white, right?
Because they're white. It's because their content, the content there's xenophobia in there. There's also bigotry. There's a lot of, some of it has imperialism, colonialism, and even white supremacy.
Right. Okay. So Steffi says Roald Dahl books still have value. Plenty of people, including me, a 25-year-old, enjoy his books. So Steffi is about the same age as I am, and they are more they are more than relevant still. Okay. So if you were to go back in time 30, 40 years, right? Is there any book that isn't problematic? Now, if you look at many of the black activists, for instance, you look at Malcolm X, whom I admire a lot. I admire more than Martin Luther King Jr. His books and even some of his statements, you can say there are a lot of anti-Semitic tropes behind them. So should Malcolm X also be viewed through the same problematic lens, or is he given a pass because he's a minority?
I don't think anyone should be given a pass for putting forward anything that's hurtful or harmful to any other community. That's my statement on that. But my take is on your earlier question, is there any books that are not problematic? It's a little bit tough to say because the I would say diverse literature only started booming, inverted commas, booming, but not truly booming. It's just like struggling, coming in, where diverse literature is only starting to come in. I would say probably more actively in the last less than a decade. Yeah, less than a decade. So I mean, if you look at the timeline, Roald Dahl passed away 31 years ago. So a lot of the millennials grew up with his book, and also with Dr. Seuss' book, because Dr. Seuss passed away 32 years ago. But only more recently did their work started be flagged out to be xenophobic or racist, and problematic, because only recently were we starting to get, I would say, thought leaders looking more critically into their works and understanding how not having the portrayal of negative portrayals of colored characters inside stories bring a lot of effects of harm and hurt to the global community.
So Steffi was asked, I was just going to ask, so other than Oompa Loompas, right? What are some examples of the racism and xenophobia, if you have off the top of your head?
I don't.
If not, it's fine.
I have kind of erased. uh, it's, I mean,
Right,
obviously, I
right.
read them
Okay.
a very long time ago, and I didn't read them in depth. I was more of. I mean, I grew up more on a diet of Enid Blyton compared to Roald Dahl. So I don't.
So, what about Enid Blyton, for
Oh,
instance? What are some of the problematic
well,
tropes in Enid Blyton?
sorry.
I never read any of them, so I
Okay.
just don't know. I didn't
Yeah,
read
I
any
can't
of them,
point
so
out
I'm
to the
yeah.
specific characters, but if you look at it, in generally, her works are very whitewashed. There's very little diversity in the characters, and if there's any diversity, usually the characters that are of color um, are negatively portrayed. So usually, a bad character or a poor character with poor ethics, or just or someone who's inflicting harm, or if that character is a character of color, that character needs saving, for example. Yeah.
Right. Okay, I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around this, right? So how
Mm-hmm.
far back do we go? Do we judge yesterday's works by today's standards? Because our immorality has so-called evolved. And where does it stop? Does it stop at Dr. Seuss? How about Friends? Should Friends also not be encouraged because it doesn't portray black
Mm-hmm.
characters? What about Seinfeld? Right? So Seinfeld and Friends are funnier than many of the diverse communities that we see, where you have a lot of diversity, but they're not funny. They are just there to tick boxes, right? So how far do we want to go with this
Maybe it's
particular
not about
idea?
how looking back, but more of looking forward. Like if you look at the current state of the media, we have in Marvel, we have the Black Panther. We probably wouldn't have the Black Panther as in a blockbuster movie. I would say 10 years ago, probably, or even more than that. But we are getting more and more diversity in diverse representations in characters in our media as well. I mean, in our screen media as well, and also at the same time, not only that, gender as well. You wouldn't find a female superhero or a female protagonist much, especially when I was growing up. Yeah, but now my children growing up, they see more superheroes in a female character. They see more female protagonists, that doesn't need saving, that isn't helpless, and those are empowering. Yeah,
Right,
I would personally want
right.
to have been able to see that growing up. Strong female characters at least.
Right. So Hamza says we had Blade, and this was many, many years ago. I think he's gonna be a character in the MCU as well, right? So the MCU is an interesting case study, right? Because I mean, Black Panther is my
Mm-hmm.
favorite superhero, and Shang-Chi I think worked as well. But She-Hulk was horrible, right? It seemed like it was diversity for the sake of it. Where it
Mm-hmm.
seems like when it's forced, you can see the effects of the forced representation, right? Where it does turn a lot of people off, don't you think so? Or you think all
Of
diversity
course,
is welcome?
it's tokenism. Yeah, so sometimes the diverse character is just like a token character, like, okay, here's that one Asian character, which is what kind of Asian we do not know. It's just that one Asian character, or that one black character. But like, if we are looking, what kind of black we're looking at, American, Black Americans or Africans. It's so wide and so diverse. It's just the aspect of tokenism that some we can, as consumers of media, we are able to discern whether the diverse representation that's being put into the media is truly authentic, with well thought out and intentional, or he's just there as a token character, or maybe even as a model minority. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I want to read out. So the comment section is a bit lit today. So Angie is saying, do we then erase all of that from old children's books to reflect today's values, morals? Hamza says, the white institution, but it is their language, produced for their audience, representing their cultures and their times. 1,000 years from now, people will find our content very problematic. Never mind 1,000 years, I think 30 years from now, people will find our content problematic. Hamza also asked, who decides what is hurtful or harmful? Who gets to decide? And I want to return to that. Arun says, so given that these books are written in different times or contexts, do we then teach kids the books with the context? Angie says, if the books are so problematic, then the publisher should stop publishing them. Dr. Seuss had a couple of them retired from the catalogue. Arun said, does this not complicate introducing reading to children? Many of these books are gateways to reading for children and youths. And Steffi says, arguably, many of these woke movies are not well written because the focus is on diversity rather than creating compelling characters. In fact, some of these woke characters are annoying. Those are Steffi's words, by the way, not my words. Not that I disagree. I actually completely agree, but I just wanted to say it's a word. Gary says, what are the objectives of this conversation? What do we want to achieve at the end of the day? Well, like conversations between people who disagree, you try to understand why people disagree with each other. I think it's a bit strange to even ask that question. Are we gonna then just not discuss things with people whom we disagree with? Okay. So instead of forcing diversity into books and movies, why don't we encourage people to be more diverse in their choice of books and movies to watch? You want any
You
of
take the
them?
lead. I'm you're
Okay, sure. So if I could this time paraphrase you correctly, your issue is that they were reflecting a culture which was not representative.
That can be, yes, that's true.
Right?
But that's not the main.
So should all vernacular literature prior to maybe 10 years ago, all vernacular, all Malay literature, all Indian or Tamil and Hindi and Native American, all of this literature, should all of them be shunned in the same way that white authors are shunned? Because I think we can easily make a case that you will find similar tropes in classical Arabic works, in Chinese works, right? You will find this lack of diversity and maybe sometimes caricatures presented of different races and ethnicities. So in a world like that, should we then say that all of these works prior to the exact moment which I am living in, all of these works are problematic?
Well, it depends on many aspects. Like if we are looking at the parents who are introducing it into the homes for the children to read, then we also need to think about how are we part of the cycle of harm. But if we are looking at
What what is this harm that you are talking about when we read books like that?
is it dehumanizing? Is it degrading a particular community? Does it damage our social fabric, our social cohesion? And who are the books centering as well? Yeah. So, but if we are looking at university students or adults or researchers looking into history, for example, then it's a different thing. But so there's many there's many ways to look at it. My area of expertise is in the children's book. I don't have very deep knowledge on legends of course, definitely not global legends, but generally, I only know much about whatever we have in Singapore. So we need to look at it from the perspective of the child or the perspective of an adult who has the executive function to be able to discern the content that they are reading. Well, a child doesn't have the executive function to discern the content that they are reading from the book. So an adult is still needed to help scaffold the information. Like, for example, I'm just going to quickly give an example over here. When I showed my son a Dr. Seuss book that has been discontinued, like what one of the viewer shared.
Yeah.
So it's this book, If I Ran the Zoo, and this book has
Okay.
been discontinued in 2021. The Dr. Seuss organization has discontinued 6 titles because of racist content. So I have this book. I got it as a gift, and then I showed him this. I just let him flip through the book, with me beside him to scaffold, and I showed him this page. I mean, he stopped at this page, and then I asked him, "What do you think of the drawings?" And then he said, "Why do they look like monkeys?" So this is actually a description, Dr. Seuss' description of Africans. Very dehumanizing, very degrading to show Africans as monkeys. Of course, there's a lot of others inside the book itself that's very dehumanizing and degrading, and also you can see the racism in it. So a child who's reading that book without an adult present to scaffold the content that the child is consuming, that child will take on the stereotypes. Be like, okay, all Africans are probably like that, like what Dr. Seuss drew, very dehumanizing and degrading. Or all there's also another part in the book where he very clearly emphasized on the eyes of the Chinese characters, and then he said it in the text, with helpers who all wear their eyes at a slant. Yeah. So then we know that if we were to ever make fun of other people's eyes or features or anything like that, it's really, really rude, really hurtful and harmful. But how is it okay to have it in children's books?
Right. I think those are excellent examples. I mean, those are clearly racist insertions, right? So I wouldn't deny what you're saying. So that's those are excellent examples. But the point still remains. I want to address this, right? So Fat says that she loves Far'ain's point about looking towards the future. I don't care about dead authors. Wow, if we don't care about dead authors, I mean, we should throw out 90+% of our science and math and all of that, right? I mean, we are building on the knowledge and experiences of previous authors, right? Don't you think it was, this person had something arrogant to say, right? Something racist or problematic to say, and therefore we should throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't know whether that's the appropriate approach, unless Fats is saying only specifically for children's books and not for anything else. And I would love for Fats to comment, because I think there can be a separation made, right? So let's say Far'ain, right? So that particular part in the children's books, right? Do you think just by reading that, children will become racist, or should children not be shielded from how other people actually think in this world, right? And there are some racists that they will be encountering, and then it's the duty of the parents to provide that. Okay, when you're reading this, see, this is a bad example of how you should not be describing people. You shouldn't be describing people of a different color and I think you would know this better than I, right? And children, they are not racist by nature, right? They do not understand the differences of, they will play with anybody, like black, brown, it doesn't matter. It's the parents are the ones who impart this into them, right? And we are the ones who will tell them about, oh, that person is brown and black and so on. They would use brown to maybe describe people's colors naturally, but they wouldn't put a value to that. So isn't it the job of the parents to do that rather than to censor or to tell people that, okay, we shouldn't be reading this. So you read this, you read other things as well, but this is the reality. There are other people in the
Okay.
world who think like that.
So let's look at parenting first. If we are going to be actively, if a parent is going to be actively scaffolding the information or the content that the child's reading, then it's probably going to be okay, you know, like, so that means that whatever the child reads, so if the child were to pick up, like, say, a Dr. Seuss book from our library or a Roald Dahl book from the library, and the parent already has prior knowledge on the content and knows that, okay, you know what, the content is problematic, so we need to help scaffold our child's knowledge about it. And sure, that's fine. I personally I didn't wait until my son picked up a Dr. Seuss book from the library. I used it because I already had it at home. I got it as a gift, so I used it as a tool, as a tool to have conversations with him about it. So that I didn't choose to, you know, wait for it to happen by chance, where, oh, he picks up book at the library that's harmful, then I'll start talking about it. So I'm on that camp where I will actively try to make sure that I'm aware of whatever content he's reading, but it's not easy to keep up because he's already, you know, in at least in the children's section, it's okay because you can finish a children's book in 5 minutes, like reading through it quickly as a parent. But once it comes to the chapter books and then the young adult books, it's how do you keep up as a parent? It's not easy, right? So, but you still vote as a parent with your wallet. So as long as you are paying for whatever kind of literature consumption that your child is reading, then you're voting with your wallet. So it's either you vote with ignorance or you vote with being informed. So that's the choice. And if you want to choose with voting with being informed, that means you need to exercise your right as a person who's voting with your wallet. You want to make sure that, okay, I want to, as a parent, I want to also ensure that the ecosystem of my child growing up is a safe place. I know that the ecosystem, whatever comes into my home, whatever content that's entering my home, I know that, you know, whatever my child's reading is safe. If there's something harmful or hurtful, I know, I'm aware about it, and I'm able to take the steps that I need to scaffold my child about the content. So there's that, you know. But how much can we really keep up with the you know, publications? It's not possible, especially as a child grow older. So you need, so the only way to do it, it's not really the only way, is to, as a parent, demand for publishers to be responsible for the publications that they continue printing and putting into the bookstores for our children to read. Yeah, for our children.
I think that's fair. I think that was a good explanation. Thank you, Far'ain. So Fats did clarify. She said yes, it's specific for children's books. She also said the conversation on censorship of dead authors is taking away from the very real censorship and discrimination happening today in the publishing industry. I don't know. I always find that when you talk about something like that, somebody else will say, oh, but what about this other conversation? Yeah, let's have that conversation as well. But today we're talking about this, right? Because this is important. I mean, important enough for the two of us to talk about this. I'll be happy to have a conversation with us as well on that, right? So okay, so Angie says that is not a conversation about censorship, but it's a conversation about parenting. Would you agree with that?
No, I wouldn't say that it's just about parenting, but it's about our responsibility. Everybody has a part to play. Whether you have children or not, everybody has a part to play in how we chose for the outcome for our future generations. Yeah. It's not just a parenting thing. It's just like the responsibility of the society.
Okay, I wanted to ask you, right? So you said harmful and hurtful and offensive, right? So some things are extremely clear, right? Some things are extremely clear, and the examples you give, I think, are extremely clear, extremely racist, extremely harmful. So what about things which are less clear, right? Things which are in the gray area, right? So Shaha says that the word fat in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is replaced by the word enormous. So I'd like to ask, who decides what is offensive? And if I were to push you a little, right, Far'ain, um, if I could, not literally, but if I were to push you a little, right? So what if 5 years from now, society decides that wearing the hijab is offensive because we are taking away a woman's right? I mean, you've heard all the arguments, right, about that, right? To decide false consciousness. Even when women say they want to wear it, it's false consciousness. They don't really believe that. They have been conditioned by society to believe that.
What's my take on it? Oh,
Yeah, what happens then? Then would you be okay with your book being censored as well because it's about societal mores and all?
well, that's part of religion, so it's a little bit complex, you know. It's
But why? So you and I both agree that this is a religious obligation, right? Because we believe in the same religious text. Like, I believe that the Quran is the infallible word of God, right? And I believe it's the greatest miracle on earth. But I believe that because I'm a Muslim, or I'm a Muslim, that's why I believe that. Actually, I'm a Muslim because I believe that. And but people who are not Muslims will not believe that. For them, there's no difference between the Quran and Roald Dahl's book in terms of its potential, the potentiality of harm, right? For them, there's no difference, right? So why should religious books be given that extra cover?
well, it's firstly, one is scripture and the other one is literature. So
Us is not scripture to everybody, right? It's literature to other people as well, isn't it? To
I mean,
non-Muslims,
it's still,
the Quran is
it's
not
considered
scripture,
a
right?
scripture text. Like I wouldn't call a Bible or Torah literature. I would still term it as scripture text. So it's a whole other aspect. It's not something that compared, because the publications from authors such as, you know, Roald Dahl or Dr. Seuss, or even Tolkien or Annie Blyton or C.S. Lewis and the likes, they are from people, one individual who gathers, who has a manifestation of ideas in their head and pens it down into onto paper, whatever forms of you know, device that they use in their time, and then, you know, it goes and then it gets printed and then it gets distributed to billions and billions of people. These are from these authors because their publications have been existing for a long time, so it's been like in the state of millions and millions. But scripture has a whole other historical context. It's not the same as literature. You know, scripture is usually guidance, for guidance, and also for part of the religion, for whatever rules and regulations that needs to be encompassing as part of the religion. So we can't put them in the same basket because they are not apple and apple. They are like apple and pear. Yeah.
Right. I just want to say I don't disagree with you personally, right? But I think a non-Muslim would say they are apple and apple, right? Because it's not scripture to them. I mean, it's scripture to me for sure. But yeah, as in that's just okay. So let's say it wasn't a religious obligation, the hijab. So maybe because it's a religious obligation, it gets some latitude, right? But let's say a belief of yours which is not. Do you have any controversial
Do I
beliefs
share it here?
that yeah? So
Do I really want to
sorry.
share it here?
Yeah, yeah. Better not. Better not. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I mean, all of us have some beliefs that. Well, I hope so. I hope all of us have beliefs which go against the grain of the popular wisdom, right? So I'm just worried if we are going to say, we're going to judge by any book, any piece of literature, any piece of art by 2023 standards, which may not even be 2025 standards, never mind 2123 standards, right? I just feel that we're going to lose a lot, right? Where do we stop? Dave Chappelle, should his art also be censored? Chris Rock, his art, should it be censored, or should it, because it's potentially harmful, or would you say that's different because it's comedy and it's not good?
Like I shared earlier on, it really depends on who are the consumers of the content. So there is a big difference if it's children's, if it's teenagers, if it's young adults, and even as adults. So of course, you know, in human development, executive function gets matures as we get older. So obviously for the much younger age group, you know, like the teens and below, I would say even the teens, you know, we have to be responsible for, as a society, for what we chose to publish, but more so because what is being chosen to publish is from the sentiments of the society. So like, for example, why is there such a big pushback on, from, I would say, the global community on Roald Dahl books being rewritten? Because a lot of the readers still hold nostalgia for the books because they grew up with it, and it's so hard.
Right, right.
It is so hard to think that, oh my goodness, you know, whatever I consume was part of something that was harmful, was part of something that was hurtful. So, you know, we must ask ourselves, we need to have the courage and the clarity to face it. We need to ask ourselves like questions such as, what does it mean to acknowledge our emotions? What would it mean to admit that whatever we loved as children could hurt someone today, and what would it mean to acknowledge that possible pain? So it is like what I shared earlier. I find that the Roald Dahl, I would say Roald Dahl saga is a PR stunt, because obviously when you put it out in the media, people are going to push back because the mass amount of readers grew up with his books and they hold nostalgia for it. So obviously they're going to go like, what? Why are you rewriting it?
Right.
We grew up with it and we turn out fine. But it's also like the sentence that I used earlier. Remember, we vote with our wallets, and also because the parents of today are the generations of disruptors. So it really, it's how are we going to sit with our feelings of nostalgia and reflect on it, and then learning how to move forward instead of looking back. Like, yes, Roald Dahl books brought us on great adventures in our head and all that. Totally, all these are acknowledged. But how are we moving forward with what we know now? Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you. We vote with our wallet. I think that should be on a mark somewhere because that's an excellent quote. So there is this quote that Fats is citing: "The right to swing my fist ends where the other man's nose begins." I find that this is a thoroughly false equivalence in the context of what we are saying, unless you're saying actions are the same as words, because we cannot say that. I mean, words can be harmful, but surely then there's a huge difference between words and actions, right? So are we gonna use this same principle for words as well? That's something that we can talk about. So So, Suhail said Far'ain's earlier point works best. Vote with your wallet, curate what your child reads, don't censor the public space. So I just wanna double confirm, right, what you are saying, Far'ain. You are saying that first of all, you are clear that we shouldn't be
No.
editing his
Yeah.
works, right? Or dead authors. So you are just saying this in the context of children, right? Not adults. Not adult books.
All books. I don't think that it should be edited, because if we want to edit it, it's because
No, not edited, as in your argument about how we should not emphasize Roald Dahl books. It's because it's in the context of children, right, where it needs to be more curated. Whereas adults, you can read whatever, or would you want some degree of, not censorship, but curating for that
it's
as well
up
for
to
adults?
the adults. They have their own executive function to
Right.
decide what they want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So by that token, you wouldn't wanna, you wouldn't have a problem with offensive humor and comedy as well,
Yeah.
as long as it's for adults. All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So Stephanie says, is it really hurting anyone? Though I read Dr. Seuss books as a kid, and I'm pretty sure I read the bits about Asians and slanted eyes. I'm not offended. I understand it was a product of his time. So, and I guess the broader point also, right, for you, Far'ain, right? You said this generation of parents are the disruptors, and it's society that decides. What if you are in the minority? What if the majority actually believe that, oh, no, there's nothing wrong, or at least it was wrong. It was, that man is a product of his time. Every single person is a product of his time. I'm sure if you wanted to stretch it, you can find misogynistic comments from Gandhi, or if you want to go to the Bible or the Quran, if you want to find impose 2023 lens, right? So, what if you are in the minority and the majority actually do not think like you? So does that mean that society shouldn't change because we are going by societal
So
values?
I'm going to pose this statement that books are mirrors and windows. So books are mirrors and windows. So when we read a book, and there's a character in there that is, like for example, a Singaporean character in the book. That character is a mirror of us. But when we read, and then whatever other characters inside the book that are not representative of our identity are windows, because we're learning about the other character, the culture, or the traits of that character. But let's look at the word mirror, books as mirrors. So when we look at a character that is, for example, like the example I gave earlier on, where I showed the picture of how Dr. Seuss drew Africans as monkeys. How affirming is that as a child, or generally as a reader who is, looking at picture books? How affirming does it feel to see a mirror of your ethnicity, to look at your ethnicity mirrored that way back to you in such a degrading and dehumanizing way? And a lot of the authors in the past curated their characters of color that way, very dehumanizing, very degrading, with zero merits, and it's not affirming to you. So you can be a Asian person reading the book, and looking at the reading about the Asian character in the book, the Asian character in the book, and you'll be like, that doesn't represent me. It's not very affirming. But that's if you have the executive function to discern that. But most of the time, children are like, oh, is that how my identity is supposed to be? My identity is supposed to be in this particular, my skin color is described as dirty or unclean, or my features are just not very pleasing or pleasant, like I don't have a set of brains that can let me stand up for myself. So a lot of times that is where the damage happens. And it's unconscious, it's very subtle. And we look at how we function as a global society. We still value fairer skin. We still value lighter eyes. Very simple. Look at all the contact lenses on sale. Just go into Watsons and Guardian, look at all the whitening products all over. And if we just walk into a shopping mall, look at the models that are modeling the products on the advertising. It's very clear. And whatever we read, whatever we feed our mind becomes our unconscious bias and prejudice as well. So when we don't have any affirming character inside the kind of literature that we consume as a child or as a teenager, then how is that going to impact us as we grow up?
Mm, mm, mm. I'm trying to think, is Roald Dahl and Dr. Seuss, is the link to whitening products as clear cut as that, right?
Classism, colonization, imperialism, there's a lot of
this value on fair skin, I mean, it predated colonialism, right? You can find this in works of societies everywhere. I don't know why you linked it to colonization. I think this has been, I mean, I agree with you. It's a problem. It's a huge problem. I mean, you don't need to tell me about it, right? Given the way I look, right? But I'm not sure whether the blame is on colonialism and therefore making the link to Roald Dahl and Enid Blyton and Dr. Seuss. Yeah, I mean,
it isn't very. We want to bring our children up to know that they can reach their goals. They are beautiful, they are strong. But if you're going to let the floodgates of all this dehumanizing or degrading content enter their lives when they don't even have the maturity or the executive function to deal with it, then that's when we see, or even like mental health is on the rise, like body positive. There's a lot of these authors are also not body positive as well. There's a certain body that's favored. Yeah.
Right. I don't deny that. I'm not sure whether we can pin the blame on these authors on those things, because if people have been reading them for 40 years and mental health issues are on the rise in the past 10 years and not the past 40 years, then it has nothing to do with them. It's more about social media and our access to all of this, right? So I'm not sure whether we can just throw in mental health and then link it to Roald Dahl. I'm not sure whether that's fair. Any response to
social
that
media
before
obviously
we move on?
accelerated all this because content became a lot more accessible at a very fast pace and a large amount. So that's why social media the decline of mental health.
Okay. Interestingly, Steffi said, isn't the rise of mental health issues because kids are insulated from all of this? The idea that life is terrible, and therefore when they, I guess she's not saying this, but therefore when they encounter difficulties in life, that happens. But in any case, so I wanted to, maybe we go a little bit more controversial, okay? With your permission. Okay. So one of the most difficult topics, if not the most difficult topics for us Muslims operating in the space that we do, right? Especially the activist spaces that we do. And one of the most difficult topics is for sure gay marriage, right? Because gay marriage. Gay marriage.
No,
I thought you were pretending not to hear me when I said.
Cut off a little bit, that's why.
Okay. Sorry. So, gay marriage, right, is one of the most difficult ones, right? Because Muslims, we have a particular idea, a particular religious idea about marriage, right? And it's between a man and woman, right? Many of our ideas on sexuality and marriage would be considered non-mainstream. Today in the West is already considered non-mainstream, right? So Muslim authors who write books, children books about heterosexual relationships may one day also be classified, not may one day, I think in some cases they already be classified as bigots and so on. Is that the path we want to go down? Like, because censorship, right, is not, there is never ever a way where we can say, oh, only this particular genre is, but everything else is not. Once we open that door, right, then that door is open already. And that door is open on us as well. So would you say, basically my question is, aren't you worried yourself of being cancelled by others because your views do not conform on a particular issue, do not conform to the mainstream of that
I'm not
norm?
worried, mainly because I know that times are changing. We know that, and if my work is irrelevant in the next whatever X amount of years, I definitely will not be rolling in my grave about it. So I'm personally not worried, and I'm okay with, I don't see why I need to continue, or at least why my books need to continue being printed, if they are already not reflective of today, of the times in the future. Yeah. Or if they are not just printed, re-edited or
But
rewritten, or anything like.
but but when you say reflective of the times, right? It's about power as well, right? It's not just about political power, it's about cultural power as well. It's not about right or wrong per se, right? What is right in the day, right? In the mainstream, right? What doesn't get you cancelled? It's not necessarily the truth. It is what is popular at one point in time. Or even a specific segment. There are many issues, right? If you ask the average person, they'll say one thing, but they'll admit that I can never say this online because I know that the online crowd will go after me, right? I just had a conversation with one person just now. I will not mention who that person is, but that person was telling me that person likes a certain brand of comedians but would never admit to it online because that person will be cancelled online or something to that effect. So when you say that it's society, right, aren't we ignoring the cultural power, even the financial power of a lot of these corporations in spreading certain values?
So, of course, there are agendas behind why um, there are most likely agendas behind why some organizations are choosing to stay in power. Like, for example, Roald Dahl, the Roald Dahl organization coming out of, it's owned by Netflix now, so I can just say Netflix. Coming, putting out media on media that they are going to rewrite the text, and then of course the uproar coming back, and then they say, okay, we won't rewrite it. It's like what I shared earlier. I felt that it was more of a publicity stunt so that they can continue staying in power, so that they can continue staying relevant, because they know that, okay, when they put out this statement in the media that it's going to be rewritten, and then they get this pushback from the global community, like, why do you need to rewrite it? They know that, okay, they are still going to be profitable even if they don't write it. So that system that has been built around the organization will still profit because we vote with our wallets. Yeah. So that is the agenda. Personally, like, this is my the disclaimer, this is my own words, okay? That is what I feel is the agenda, so that they can continue staying relevant, so that they know that they can continue getting the raising the awareness and the interest of whoever the generation of readers that still exist, that are paying for the books, are probably the millennials, would still continue voting with their wallets to pay for Roald Dahl content. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So Sohail mentioned, thank you for that, Far'ain. Sohail mentioned that the right to express my beliefs and read the books I want can only go as far as I protect the same rights for others. No? So that's the question he asked. I mean, I agree. So Angie asked, would you be okay with them being edited after their deaths? I think you already said no, you're not in favor of that. Therese says, and I have to read this comment,
Oh.
she is an alumni of Teh Tarik. I think there's potential for decolonization through expanding awareness of local book culture and native works, which, you know, using all the buzzwords, right? So which is not wrong. But as I said, if we are going to criticize white authors for this, right? Are we sure that our local authors from the same time period are not guilty of such things?
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that's not true. That is not true. Across different cultures, the stereotyping and so on did happen, right? Across different cultures. Prior to colonization, right? You saw even the stories in our own seerah, right? In our own history of the Prophet, you saw that there was racism. And so where did that come from? That was prior to colonization. So how exactly what is the standard we are going to use? It cannot be that, it's as long as it's not white, right? So white doesn't mean right, but white doesn't mean immediately wrong as well, right? So we need to discern what is. And likewise, black doesn't mean right, black doesn't mean wrong as well. So what exactly is the standard that we are going to use?
I don't agree with, it's about white or it's about black or that kind of standard. For me, it's about having equality, I would say equity at the table. So right now, currently, in terms of children's literature, 41% of the characters are white. Is that equal? Is that equitable? It's not.
41% of
And then
characters
guess
are
what's the
white.
next? It's well,
Not
you might not
majority,
think it's the
basically.
majority, but the next largest number is 21% of the characters are animals. And then
I see.
all the other
Okay.
characters are under 15%. So is that fair? Is that representative of our global majority, of our global community? It's not. 41% of the world is not white.
But do they have to be, when you read a book, do you want to see the equivalent number? So let's say I write, so if I write a book in Singapore, right, and there are three main characters, one is Malay, one is Indian, one is Chinese. That's not representative of Singapore, right? It's not at all. If there are only three characters, then two or three should be all Chinese, because 75% of Singapore is Chinese. So how do we want to draw these lines? Like, so when I read these books, am I really interested? When I read a child reads a children's book, are they interested in how many white characters or cartoon characters in this? By the way, you are talking about English books, right? Yeah.
There's
Okay,
no statistics on our mother tongue languages yet.
So English books written mostly by white people.
All English books are written mostly by white people, but the statistics I'm sharing with you, want to look at it from the lens of who has the most power. So white institutions have the most power. So white publishing houses has the most power. And the ones with the most power would have the most influence on our minds, basically. So that's why I'm gonna.
Should Malay books have equal representation as well of the global population?
On the topic as well. If we are gonna talk about fasting during Ramadan, then obviously the majority of the characters are gonna be Muslims, right? It won't have a non-Muslim going to the mosque, doing Tarawih prayers and all that, unless they are looking at the character who's a non-Muslim is a minor character, just part of the the whole story. Then yeah, it depends on the, let's say, the topic that we're looking at. Like for example, when I wrote Uncle Daniel's Favorite Color, the book about a blind uncle who has a favorite color. Uncle Daniel is a Chinese man. Yusuf, the boy, is a Malay, comes from a biracial family. So his mother is Uncle Daniel's sister, and his father is a Malay man. And inside that book, I deliberately kept the words adik, abang, asam pedas inside, because I'm an author of, it represents my identity. You know, I use the words adik, abang, and I eat asam pedas. And I would like whoever is the reader to know more about the words adik, abang, and of course asam pedas. So the readers who read my books, who are able to identify with the words adik, abang, and asam pedas, they were like, wow, you know, thank you. They were saying, you know, thank you for writing, including the words adik and abang and asam pedas, and especially having that illustrated in.
Is
Sorry?
setting in Singapore? Is that setting in Singapore? The setting of your book? But that book is not representative. It's not representative of the Singapore population, right?
It is a mirror for those who are able to identify with that identity, and it becomes window.
Why can't white authors say the same?
For the white authors that we are looking at, like Roald Dahl, Dr. Seuss, C.S. Lewis, Tolkien, Enid Blyton, their content has a lot of xenophobia. They are not.
No, okay. Let's say we don't have that. We are moving on to the point of 41%. So let's say 41% itself, right? But they are saying the exact same thing. Oh, I'm not writing to be representative of the global population. I am writing for a specific crowd, people who look like me, who can identify with this. If I am not xenophobic, if I am not racist, is that okay?
It's okay.
To you?
But do we need to keep giving power to a dominant culture already?
When you say we, who do you mean we? I mean, we can just not buy, right? If you don't want to buy, if it doesn't speak to you, just don't buy. I guess what's the problem?
Reality of when we walk into a bookstore. So just a few months ago, I walked into Kinokuniya, and then obviously I'll go to the children's section. And what do I find? Rows and rows of Enid Blyton, rows and rows of Roald Dahl, and rows of Peppa Pig. But where is the diverse literature? So it's like literally at a corner, which is probably like maximum 2 shelves with all the different diverse authors. And then compared to the rows and rows and rows of Enid Blyton and Roald Dahl and Dr. Seuss that you find in a bookstore, that's the reality of it. So that already shows that the consumers, the people who are voting with their wallets, would vote from the quantity that's available at the bookstore when you're already.
Or there is that quantity because people have voted with their wallet.
So if we want.
So that was the problem. If minorities are the ones who choose, minorities who choose to buy Roald Dahl books for our children,
it's
then what's
not
the
a problem per se in a words where in that state where it's problematic. But then when we start thinking, how come, why my children always reading white? When the parents start asking, why so hard to find diverse literature? It becomes the problem because we are giving space to the white institutions already, the big publications house that are mainly whites. But the smaller institutions that are trying to bring in all this diverse literature, they are not able to fight. Economically, it's close to impossible. A lot of
Fair enough. Fair enough. No, I think that's a good argument because I'm not a free market proponent anyway. As in, I don't think it solves everything. I'm just saying that if people have decided to buy, then I think that is the decision they've made. What you're saying is a fair criticism. I think that's something that bookstores have to seriously consider. Are you sidelining authors, alternative authors? So sorry, it's been 1 hour 10 minutes, right? If you could indulge me
No,
in a couple more questions. One by Megan. So what exactly does
sorry.
equitable children's literature look like? Given all the various, what exactly does equitable children's literature look like? Given all the various ways we can look at demographics and diversity, right? So, what's the biracial character in your book?
Chinese
Would their
and
parents are from
Indian.
which ethnicity? Right.
So
See, my son is not
Indian.
represented in that, right? My son is Indian and right. So then your book doesn't speak to his
So
lived
my
experience, right?
a
So
window
my point
for
is there are
him.
so many ways.
My
Wait, sorry, why is it
into another
a window
person's
into
ethnicity for him. So my book would be a window. So we all know, like we majority of us grew up with knowing, okay, what is tea, what's cakes. You know, we know a lot about the white culture, but how much do we know about the non-white culture? Because we read about it in most of whatever we consume as a child, and not only that, in whatever media we consume as well. Yeah.
but do you think that's true in 2023? I cannot see a movie or whatever it is without diversity, and I know it's false diversity. Is that criticism really true? I mean, I think that
Mm-hmm.
criticism was true in 2013. I mean, in 2023, that is still a criticism that is true, that people are not exposed to diversity and
Yes, it
they
is.
are only exposed to
If
white
not, why are we
culture.
still so as a Singaporean community, why are we still unaware about a lot of things about each other's cultures? Like we still, you know, why are we saying to our Muslim friends, "Oh, Happy New Year" during Hari Raya? You wanna laugh, you can laugh.
No, no, no. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That is an experience
So,
every Muslim has
so why are we
uh,
saying
gone through
Happy
in
New Year
Singapore.
to
So I was
Muslims during Hari Raya? But you know, we would say, "Oh, Happy Chinese New Year" or Happy Lunar New Year. We are able to greet it accurately to our Chinese friends, or you know, greet accurately like Diwali or Deepavali, or you know, instead of saying, "Oh, Happy Indian New Year" to our Indian friends
yeah,
Deepavali.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, that's a separate topic. I've done a few episodes on Chinese
Okay.
privilege, but let's not go there today. Let's stay. Otherwise, I'll hold you for the next 1 hour also. Okay, so final question for you, right? As an author, right? So just now you said, when I said my son is
Mm-hmm.
not represented, but it's a window, right? Well, Roald Dahl and Enid Blyton and all of them can make the exact same argument. It's a window. It's a window. As long as it doesn't fit your diversity criteria, it's a window into somebody else's thinking. It's a window into. Now, you may not like the depiction of the characters, and I think rightly so. I do not like it as well. By the way, I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that they were featured like that in Doctor. You may not like that, but there's a window into the thinking of some people, right? So we can use the window argument to justify anything, right? And then the diversity argument can go out of the window there, right? So my final question to you is, who should an author write for?
That really depends on the author. So an author, like for myself, I write for children. I write, and I chose to write responsibly because I know I'm writing for children. I'm writing for the children of today, and I believe that I'm also writing for the children of tomorrow, because whoever purchases you know, my works, my books, will probably read them to their own children in the next generation. So I'm writing for most likely 2 generations. And if my publishers want to continue printing my book way after my death, then it might be more generations after that. But that's a very personal question. It will be a different answer author to author who they are writing for. But my answer is I'm writing for my children and the future generation. So I choose to write as responsibly as I can, because not only am I a mother, I'm an educator, and I also understand the impacts that literature has on human development. One pen can change the world. One word can change the world. We know that. So I believe that whatever I have written down would have a very great impact many, many years down the road, even when I do not exist anymore. Yeah.
If you do not
If I
get
do not
cancelled.
so yeah, but I can state this very clearly, and because I know whatever comes up on social media will be forever as well. I don't wish for my works to be rewritten or edited to stay relevant. If it is not relevant anymore, then stop publishing it. Yeah, stop printing. Yeah.
Right. So you're comfortable with that, with
Mm-hmm.
the relevance being determined by political and
Sorry?
cultural power. Being determined by political and cultural power.
Well, I'm dead already, so I don't really have. I can't really do much.
Okay. Let's say you're
Okay.
alive. Let's say you're alive. Let's say this happens next year, right? So you're comfortable with the idea that your ideas will stop being published because
Mm-hmm.
people do not like it, not because you're comfortable with that.
Even if it's uncomfortable, I will have to sit with the discomfort. And if it is a discomfort of, for example, whatever I wrote is harmful or hurtful, then I definitely have to be comfortable with it. I have to sit with the discomfort and learn to be comfortable with it. But if it's for other agendas, I probably will not be able to sit with discomfort. Like, for example, because my latest book, Uncle Daniel's Favorite Color, features disability. If it's because people are anti-disability, then obviously I will not sit with the discomfort. I won't have a lot of power to say that my books need to continue being printed, but I do have other spaces, other outlets like social media, using my word, using my presence to continue advocating for disabilities. Yeah, for accessible support and systems for the disabled.
Thank you so much. So Megan says, I feel like ultimately censorship of art completely defeats the purpose of art in the very first place. Shouldn't art be a window to discussion, whether we're agreeable or
Especially
disagreeable? You would
for
agree with that?
adults, but not for children. Yeah, look.
Right. I think you're right. I think I am actually in agreement with you on the principle. I think for children, I do think that it's not the same as it is for adults, right? Although I have seen in the comments today even, and of course online as well, people would say even for adults, this can be harmful and therefore should be, which is not the argument you are making. So I want to be clear, that's not the argument you're making. So I think for children, definitely we do not say that, okay, just expose them to any form of nudity, right? Nobody says that. I mean, generally people don't say that because we are, yeah, exactly. So we understand that there must be some quality control. I guess the question is, where do we draw the lines? Is diversity an important criteria? What exactly, how fine-grained should be the diversity? Should the diversity be, right? Should it incorporate all forms of intermarriages, all forms of sexualities and genders? Like every character,
no.
every book has to have all of this, right? When I read, when I see, yeah, exactly, yeah. So when we look, when people criticize Friends, for instance, right? I watch comedy for the humor. I don't watch to, if it's funny, I don't care who says it, right? It's not the censors, right? It's not Parliament, right? Where I want to see representation, right? When I watch Friends, I want to check out, I want to laugh, right? But I guess that's where the disagreement between myself and many people would be. Any final words, Far'ain?
Okay, so my final words will be investigate between our feelings and how it contributes to the future. Remember, we vote with our wallets. Understand who we're giving power to when it comes to media, because we vote with our wallets. So how we vote is also how we give power to the different people in the industry. And actually, I'm very excited actually to see the generation of disruptors today. Yeah. So quite exciting to see what's happening in the media. In 2015, the number of publication that are whites are very centered at 71% plus, 71 plus percent, and now we're at 41%. So maybe in the next 10 years, it could be equal level playing. I'm quite excited to see that.
You know what? I unfortunately do
Okay.
not share your optimism. Um, well, I'll tell you what, in terms of politics, right? I feel that diversity has been used an excuse to mask incompetence and to mask selling out to corporations, right? So, oh, let's put a diverse person. There was this meme, right, where
Yep.
about the military-industrial complex, right? 2003, the US fighter jet was dropping bombs in Muslim countries. 2022, it was dropping bombs still, but with the rainbow flag. And then, oh, people are saying, oh, now it's diverse. And then we look at Kamala Harris. Oh, she's a black woman. Yeah. But is that the person you want? Right? Is that the person who really represents? What if she's just a corporate shield, right? So I am not sure whether diversity is the lens through which I assess things. At the same time, I am thoroughly sympathetic to your idea about of representation in children's books. So I'm definitely sympathetic to that, and I think you have convinced me on a few things. Not everything, but I think you have convinced me on a few things.
I would like to know.
I have to rethink. So at the start, I thought how you started this was really strong, and in terms of pointing out the actual, because a lot of people speak in generalities, but you really pointed out the specific harmful effects or harmful and racist aspects of Dr. Seuss, right? And I thought that was, I mean, there's no defending that already, right? And those parts, I think we really need to have a conversation about that, right? So my worry is, even then, I wouldn't want it to be edited, right? Which you also do not want. You just want us to boycott
I don't want
or
you to
publishers.
boycott.
Right?
I want you to be informed. That's all. So you're informed. You
Right. So, boycott for our children. Boycott for our children.
I just be informed parents
right?
so that you know what's entering your
Right.
home. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that part I'm convinced by. So Megan and Angie said, basically, should we push the parenting responsibility to publishers and creators? And then we can think also, right? Then what about YouTube? Right? What about Netflix? Right? And what about the internet? What about TikTok? TikTok is far more harmful to children than Roald Dahl's books, right?
That's everywhere. So
Yeah.
that's the thing about being a parent. There are predators everywhere. The predators are everywhere, and we need to be at least aware of where the unsafe areas of are, where the predators enter. So at least we know, and we are able to take steps to ensure safety of our children.
100% agree. So let's end on that reconciliatory note. I think we got through this okay. I think we are still friends.
Are we still friends, Walid?
So thank you. I really appreciate you coming on and just on short notice, and you were game and you wanted to talk about this. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the work you do for sure. And differences of opinions even on the same side is something that should be cherished. So I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much, Far'ain, and good night, everyone. Thank you for the comment section. Such active
Thank
participation
you.
today. Okay.
Have a
Good
good
night.
night. And you can
Bye-bye.
always add me on DMs if you want to further debate about it.
All right. Okay.